Hello brothers and sisters, in this issue I want to share a story that left me with a lot of thoughts today. Recently, I will go with an Australian government delegation to visit once the Aboriginal community. Aborigines have been the Aboriginal people of Australia for a long time. According to some scientific research, they came and lived on the Australian continent from about 5 years ago to about 7 years ago, which means a very long time ago. Now that you have visited Australia and bought souvenirs, you will see that the dotted pattern without red or black is decorated on it. It is the pattern that people like. Aboriginal people, more famous, have a boomerang that people will mention every time Australia is mentioned. Previously, I could write an article on my personal page, the reason why the Aboriginal people existed for so long but they were not as developed as other civilizations was quite an article. Interesting, I will post the link later. Going back to this story, in the modern history of Australia, when the British Empire discovered the Australian continent, during the early days of exploring Australia, they did many bad things to the Aboriginal people, whether they killed or not. There are master lists that are terrible. The small thing is that in Australian history, there is also a generation called the stolen generation. The stolen generation is because young people are stolen under this policy. They are arrested and then asked about their families, where their family lives. This story is portrayed very clearly in a movie called An Australian Movie, which is very good. If you have a chance, please watch it. Going back to the story, later on, when Australia became more modern and more humane, they began to have policies to apologize to the Australian Aboriginal people. In the early 2000s, the Australian government even publicly asked for forgiveness. Blamed the Aboriginal people for the mistakes they have made in the past, accompanied by very preferential compensation policies for the Aboriginal people. Basically, the government provides a lot of support to the Aboriginal people, so the question is, the story ended here very well, however, because of those support policies. It also led to a problem that also caused a lot of headaches for the Australian government. Among us here, I expect we have felt more or less the same. Feel tired with everyday life, and surely there have been times when we wished that someone would take care of us so we wouldn't have to work anymore and still have money to live. A saying is, be careful what you wish for. It is very true in this case because what we are dreaming of is the root of the problem that the Aboriginal people in Australia are having. To this is surely some of you wondering why that is the problem that is solved. They live in a peaceful country and are completely supported by the government, without having to worry about money or worrying about health or medical problems. There is nothing like living in paradise. But that's not the case. When I went to the area where they lived, the feeling that the area where they lived in was overwhelming, a very heavy feeling. You can use the word heart tumor and the data shows that crime or domestic violence in these areas is very high. Only later did I learn that was the reason. Imagine, you were born and you didn't have to worry about anything. When you grow up, you don't have any career, and in fact you don't need a career because the situation is that you don't have any support because there is a government, and every day you wake up and you don't know what to do. I don't know what I should do. Every day, like every other day, life becomes very boring. Living such a life for a short time sounds attractive, but living for years feeling this way month after month is extremely terrible. So that's why they started looking for stimulants, and then they looked for other evils, which is still the top problem for the Australian government. The project I am working on for the government is also a part of finding this solution. If allowed, I will share with you that this project is also very interesting and related. It is very important to many students that I share this story with you, because it gives me a lot of thoughts as I have talked about it in our daily lives sometimes. I feel very tired of the things around me. When we are born, we have to try to study, try to pass, then get a job after that, and then we are caught up in the cycle of work, and sometimes it makes us feel tired. But through this story, I want to share with you a different perspective. It is the fatigue of going from one goal to another that makes our lives interesting.